It's so lovely to be here. I have to say, I have a couple of favorite literary communities besides Winnipeg's. Saskatchewan's literary community is marvelous, but Victoria's literary community is also extraordinary. And I've been so lucky to be introduced to it by Yvonne over the years. So I often invite audiences to sort of heckle in the chat. But one of the things I started doing with Treed is I asked audiences to stand and be trees, to stand with their arms outreached. And maybe this can be our seventh inning stretch. So I want everybody to put their arms up and imagine that they're a tree and maybe sway a little bit. And if you want, you can be a tree that you've lost. Okay, keep going. You are a lovely grove of trees, and I'm going to take a picture. Okay, that's glorious, and that makes me so happy. All right, so I'm going to give you a little bit of context for the poem, because you are not Winnipeggers. You will not understand maybe one or two of the references. And I'm just going to turn my on just to make sure that I am within time. All right, so here's the appendix to the book. Consultation residency, Winnipeg's street trees. Oh no, my internet is unstable. Am I back? Can you hear me? Okay. Just before my synonym art consultation residency, Winnipeg street trees were hosts for three infestations: cankerworms, elm spanworm, and tent caterpillars. This meant any number of worms dangling from trees on silky lines, almost covering the sides of buildings, colonizing the sidewalk. Some people called it the year of the caterpillar. Other people dubbed it Wormageddon. During this period, Winnipeggers wore worms on their shoulders and in their hair. They got worms in their mouths while biking. When it wasn't worms, it was the loose strands of silk sticking to people's arms, legs, and face anytime they were outside. And when it wasn't worms, it was the enormous quantities of worm poop raining down from the canopy, covering stairs and cars. And when it rained, you slipped around on a layer of liquefied worm poop. But all of that was only an inconvenience. To the trees, the worms constituted a health hazard. The worst hit trees had their leaves eaten down to the stem, which meant they spent the last few weeks of June growing a new canopy's worth of leaves. In particular, this defoliation can make the elm trees more susceptible to Dutch elm disease, because growing a new set of leaves uses up energy they'd otherwise use to combat infections. Now, the mature elm outside the tallest poppy that I wrote to is middle-aged, anywhere from 70 to 100 years old. It's survived round after round of construction, billows of pollution, drought, and even gig posters stapled to it. It didn't lose all its leaves to the worms, but neither did it look like it was flourishing. Part of the point of TreeTalk is that I was adding a new layer of leaves to the tree, replacing those munched up by the worms. Part of the point was adding a new layer of ideas to our conception of street trees. So I'm going to read to you from the poem, and you can see it sort of looks like this on the page. And every time I read a voice that isn't mine, I'm going to put my finger up like this. It's not because I like hand gestures, it's to indicate the other voices. So you'll soon see what I mean. And we're starting on the second day. I spent 16 hours total sitting outside on the patio working on this poem. So Sunday, July 30th, high/low, 32 degrees Celsius /21 degrees Celsius. Garage sale sign appears overnight, taped to the tree. 1 million slightly used leaves for sale. Hobbits plus trees are all you need. Peace and stuff. The street quiets. Patio talk, the creak of doors, the sun moving across the table. A coffee here, a loaf of bread there. I'm too hungover to write anything. An old man with a sky blue basketball jersey above and bright white knee socks below, his knees knobby, his skin the color of a melted candle, waits at the bus stop. People pour secrets into the tree. Images, ideas penetrate the bark like beetles and feed. If you want to be remembered for something you do, you will be well advised to do it under an elm, a great elm, for such a tree outlives the generations of men. Donald Culross Peaty. Half dead, wilting, flagging, falling, stumped, lilted, listing. Across the street, a man with a bare chest, white and hairy, with a red face, flexes his muscles like he's a Sunday strongman. He turns slowly like he's on a cake, preening in the window. Twigs markedly zigzag, grayish brown, slightly hairy or hairless, often drooping. Plants of the Western boreal forest. You must think we two-leggeds make some odd choices with our freedom to move. The pale man stares out at the strong man. He barely moves in his lukewarm bathtub of shade. The afternoon is indifferent, but the patio dwellers giggle. Taking a break inside, the tree retreats. The sun stays where it is. My head buzzes like fluorescent lighting, like a handful of moths batting at a porch light. A rattling skateboard, a suitcase, a fast walker, all in black, crows. People, if anyone can keep a secret, it's a tree, because trees don't talk back. Confess. Not all leaves flutter, you know. Scraggly Wolseley tree, trying not to be naked on the slowly gentrifying street. How many drunks have you seen marching down Sherbrooke in your lifetime? Lights hung in the trees, wires, nests, garbage bags shredded by updrafts, homemade kites. Every word ever muttered under its leaves, every breath. I am in leaf. I'm sugaring, my skin itchy with sun, my fingers curled around a pencil. I have learned how to breathe exhaust. I am a filter feeder. Indigenous to the province, it withstands the extremes of prairie winters, tolerates salt dumped on our streets, tolerates soil compaction and the vagaries of city works and operations departments. Trees, Winnipeg. How do you understand street trees? First thing, they're not nestled in the forest, not swaying alongside a sibling, not nursed. Sitting on the patio, knees touching, bare-boned, a tree instead of an awning. Thank you, protector. Thank you for holding light, shelter, and keeping the whispers of our people as we pass you by day. A pair of miniature Dobermans decides to pick a fight with a dog across the street. The owner hauls them back. A white girl brings her new hula hoop to breakfast. Floral dresses move like flower beds in the breeze. I am making an entire wedding's worth of confetti, but very, very slowly. I am making industrial elm seed, super samaras. Debarked, unearthed, canopied, out of your tree, tree shrugger. Tree of light and life, thank you for your quiet strength and breath, heart. The lights change. The light swerves around corners, spills over tables. The light, dappled, glaring, high noon. I'm heat stroked, iced. I want the tree to move or talk. I want a Slurpee. Why do you fight to save the elms? Why bother? They are all going to die anyway. Trees Winnipeg FAQ. The utility of trees. Wearing thick layers of gig posters and rusty staples. Bike locks looped around and secured. Garlanded with Christmas lights. Poems are blades for fools like me, but an axe is good enough for a tree. Confession. When they resurfaced my street, weeks of machines, of rubble and rolls of fresh sod, I didn't defend my tree. I was resigned as its roots were scraped up, sliced off. Secret. The education system is a mess, not just because of the conservative government, but because teachers who don't actually care about kids will not retire. They keep cashing a check while young new teachers can't get jobs. The worst thing is that we teachers aren't allowed to criticize the system for fear of reprimand. Why do you think I'm writing this anonymously for an art installation? I feel like a reheated casserole, like wood that just won't light. I know there's no relief for either of us. Another hot day. Birds build nests built of clothes hangers and shopping bags, nests of hair. Birds build in trees and eaves and doorways. Taking a break. What if the tree can see what I'm thinking, that I'm not inspired anymore? What if it's offended? Don't take leaf of your senses. You may be relaxing in the shade, but these leaves are working. The waitress stares across the street, murmurs, look at her legs. Ugh, those blue shoes, that dress. Ugh, should I yell? A person will walk 300 miles to reach another person. A tree will wait 300 years for a person to come to her. And picture. "14 hours in, the tree is tinseled with my poems. I'm humid in and out, exhaust sticky on my skin, dandelion fluff in my hair. It's not the tree's fault. The poems move. People look up. Poems as poison ivy, coated and waxy. Poetry as invasive species. I am treed, but I am thinking of the coolness of my bed, the sheets, the shade. I am convinced my legs are sandbags left over from the last flood. The tree spotlit, the tree golden houred, sun on the pavement, sun on my table. It's time. Live long and prosper. How do you leave a tree? Should I pour my glass of lemon water over your roots? Should I come back at midnight and prune you? And that's where the poem ends. I also wanted to show you what the poem looked like. Oh, thank you. Haha. I wanted to show you what the poem looked like when I cut it down from the tree. So these are cut up file folders, old green file folders, and it's just yarn discards. And I picked it up from a place that recycles art supplies in Winnipeg called Arts Junction. And yeah. So one of my favorite things about it is sort of like you can see the wind macrame that happens. And I have to say a thank you in particular, because my the editors for this book are actually here. Yvonne Blomer and Lisa Passold are two of my favorite writers and people. And they were so kind as to read the poem and let me know what they thought. And so I'm just going to say that any mistakes in the manuscript are theirs. That they are taking responsibility for all those errors, and I appreciate that. So yeah. And I'm so grateful to Planet Earth Poetry for inviting me tonight. This has been wonderful, and I am looking forward to all the rest of you turning on your mics and talking again. Do we have time for that? How are we doing? I finished a little bit early, so I can read another tiny section if people want, or we could stop there and chat. Okay, so the thumbs up. I want to see the thumbs down.
I think they're up for read more. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'll start at the beginning. American elm, also known as white river water or soft elm, Ulmus americana. The horizon filled with crosses, strings of light, doors and windows. A dead elm down the street from this perch, telling time by the bus schedule, the number of yolks broken in the breakfast rush. The graceful spreading crown of American elm makes this one of our most easily recognized trees, plants of the Western Boreal Forest and Aspen Parkland. How do you talk to a tree? With sentences as broad as a year, sudden storms of words, squirrels as punctuation? Old women with wheeled carts, young women with iced coffees, men with windows rolled down, the clink of ice in a glass, a motorcycle idling at the red light, his slow arc into traffic. A young Indigenous man is the first to approach. He circles the patio. Finally, he sits and stares at the tree. Spell thanks, he says, and waits. Spell mother, spell earth. Dutch elm disease, DED, caused by the wilt fungus Ceratocystitis ulmi and spread by elm bark beetles, was introduced accidentally to North America around 1930 and was first recorded in Manitoba in 1975. Since then, many trees have died, plants of the Western Boreal Forest. The place where the bulldozer backed into it, the place where the chainsaw cut clumsily. Poems are made by losers like me, but only the city can plant a boulevard tree. Virgo supercluster, Milky Way, Orion Arm, Solar System, Earth, North America, Canada, Manitoba, Winnipeg, Wolseley, 103 Sherbrooke Street. All right, I'm going to end it there because I just gave you the address for my poem.
Thank you so much, Ariel.